I'd like to know if all parties are here. Owners of the dog here? Complainant? There's no complainant, okay. I'm going to read the narrative of what occurred from the police department. On Wednesday, June 15th, at approximately 8:30 p.m., the police department received from dispatch a woman identifying her as Teresa Morzetsky, who was bitten by a neighbor's dog. Upon arrival to her residence located at 105 White Loaf Road in Southampton, she greeted Officer Neal and others at her doorstep. She explained that while she was doing yard work, her neighbor's dog ran onto her property and bit her in the right leg. During the incident, it appeared that her neighbor did not seem in a rush to come to her aid or to get her dog. She lifted her pant leg to show us the location of the bite, and there was a small visual bruise, but I did not notice any broken skin. She was informed that we would visit her neighbor to speak with them and to find out if the dog had all the proper vaccinations. Officers informed her that the Board of Health would be notified of the incident. The officers then proceeded to the neighboring residence, where we were greeted by Chester Papineau and his wife. They both acknowledged they were aware that their dog had bitten her, and they explained that was outside in an immediate area of the dog during the incident. Officers were also informed the dog was registered with the town, that it all had all its vaccinations. They also were notified that the Board of Health would be notified. Because the complainant is not here, I would like to at least hear from the people that own the dog what occurred. Would someone mind going to the podium and at least giving us an explanation?
Good evening. My name is Esperanza Mecho. It's been very difficult for me to come to this day. I'm going to try to stick to the facts. I am very emotional. Chester and I are veterans. Chester is a 3-war veteran, and he has very sharp PTSD. On 2014, I had 2012, I have gifted my husband a German Shepherd because he always wanted a dog to want to be a German Shepherd. So he's thinking about retiring and making sure that he wants to train his dog as his therapeutic dog. So we acquired Bella from a house of 6 to 8 children. I don't remember. One child was in the way, and the father wanted to give the dog away. So Bella was 3 months old when we got her, and she seemed to be a very friendly dog. Myself and my son went to get it from the family, and she didn't seem to be a vicious dog or anything. She just came to us, and we took care of her since then. I am the caregiver of the dog, and I try to take walks with her or play with her or whatever else. But I started noticing that my dog will be very, she will be very, how would I say it? She start she will start very defensive when she will be looking at a man with children. So we started discussing that Bella was, probably has some issues when she was a puppy, and every time that I see my police officer dog neighbor to our left, he will be with his grandchild and him, and Bella will start barking like crazy. And then I will notice that she will be with the female and the child, and she was okay. And then one day, one of the neighbors around had come with some children, and the man was there, so Bella started acting like that too. So one day, it's been like 3 occasions. It was my son, Robert Napier, that was living with us about 1.5 years ago. He was there, and one time Bella had run to Tereska's house, which is on my right neighbor, and she has gone over there, and we introduced Bella to Tereska and everything. She was petting her. Bella was fine. She was fine. The neighbor was fine. One day, Bella just started running towards this man that was having his children with him, and she started barking like crazy. So I ran over there, and my son, Robert, he came and picked up Bella because she wouldn't back off. And I wanted to stay and explain to the man and the children that they were not going to be hurt, that Bella was not going to beat them or do anything to them. She was just being protective of the children. At that point, my neighbor, Tereska, was very angry, and she asked me she said, please get out of my yard, get away, go away from here. You know, I was just shocked because I thought she would be supportive of Bella and I because she had been playing with the dog before. And I wanted to explain to the man and children not to be afraid of Bella because I was trying to teach Bella, to be social. And anyway, that was one incident. Second incident, Chester had been around there, and Bella runs over there to Tereska, and we think if the dog was familiar to Tereska, she will go and be playful and want to say hello or something, but when Chester will go over there, Tereska said, oh, it's okay, don't worry, it's a puppy, blah, blah, blah. So we were okay with that. The last incident that brought us to this situation is that I have my dog, I had Bella with me. It was in an afternoon that I came very stressed out from work, and it was a beautiful day, and I just decided before getting into the house and changing my clothes, I just opened the water hose and started watering the yard. And Bella was there. I brought Bella with me, and Tereska, oh, I didn't bring my ball. Well, I had the ball, Robert and Bella's red ball. We always play ball, and this ball is red. And that day, I had Bella with me, and I had the hose, and I don't know what happened, but Bella just ran towards Tereska. I noticed that Tereska was pushing a feeder that was red, and she was pushing it. It was like a cedar. I don't know what else to call it, but it was a little cart. And Bella started barking and barking right after the cedar. And when I saw that, I started calling Bella back. I hesitated to be right there because I knew that Bella will come. But when I saw that Bella was not coming, I started approaching, and that's when Bella retrieved back to me. At that moment, Tereska said, she beat me. And I said, are you okay? And she said, she beat me, I'm gonna sue you. And I said, are you okay? I was like, when she said that she had beaten her, I said, are you okay? Do you want me to take you to the emergency room? What can I do? And she said, I am gonna sue you. You effing Mexican. She said the whole word. I was very shocked, I was very angry, and I was very disappointed because she had called me such thing. And this neighbor, that the day that we came, winter 2010. She was shoveling her driveway with a shovel. Yes, I am Mexican. Thank you. My grandmother was born and raised in Corpus Christi, Texas. And my grandfather worked the land of the cotton fields in Texas. I married my grandmother and took her to Mexico.
Ma'am, it's okay. Why don't you sit down for a second? Okay?
No, I would not like to do that, sir. I want to finish.
Okay.
If I may respectfully request this. When she called me, so I was very hurt because she was shoveling her yard, and I went and got my shovel, and I told my husband I'm gonna go and help that lady. She's an older person and she's shoveling her yard. And that's how I met her. Second thing that I had with her, she started coming to my house, wanted to take pictures because she wanted to sue Blanchard builders, the same builders, constructor builders that had built her home. She wanted for me to show her my house and the way that Blanchard builders have done my house. And she stated that she wanted to go and sue this builder. And I told my husband that, and he said, I don't want you to do anything with this lady. If she wants to do that, you have to stay away. The third thing that happened with Ms. Tereska, she started, every time that I'll be in my yard, she will come to me and ask me if I could talk to my husband and ask him to pay for a well, to build a well, and that she will want to spend the expenses. She wanted to build that. My husband got angry with that, and he said, I don't want you to talk to this lady anymore. You need to stay away from her. The incident with the dog, I was shocked when she called me such a name with such a hatred attitude, and I was very hurt because I have been trying to be a good neighbor to her. And if my dog reacted like that, I'm not a psychologist, a dog psychologist, but the only thing that I'm thinking of is to show you that red ball that I have in my car and think that probably the dog was protective and she was running after her ball. I have my dog with papers, with the veterinarian papers. She has a leash, she has a muzzle, she has different kind of chains. She has 3 cages and a house and 3 beds, and she lives well. And in that paper that I read, she wants to have my dog euthanized. I bought the dog for him. If he wants to have it euthanized, it's okay, whatever he says. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is the neighbor here? I was supposed to read them under oath and everything else, but given the fact that I didn't see the other party here, I felt we'd just keep it moving. I don't see a need to go back to that. Does the board have any comments?
I've got a question.
Ms. Mitchell, going back to where you said you felt your dog didn't like an adult man with children and he would go and try to defend the children, is that how you were saying it?
Yes, she doesn't bark at the children, she barks at the man. She just barks and barks very angry at the man. And that man, I told him she's just being protective of the children. And I was trying to explain to him, so he didn't have to be worried about the dog or the children. When I was talking to him, she told me to get out of my house, get out of my yard. She said, go away, get out of my yard. And I just, left. And then since then, I have never tried to talk to her or go to her yard or anything like that.
It sounds like your dog has some aggression, and I don't know why, but if the man tried to take the children out, if they were his children, would the dog go after her?
No, my dog, I would do say aggression, I would say protection. The dog is very protective of me when I go out and run or I am walking. As soon as certain kind of appearance of the man, I will always take her across to make sure I have a good grab of her. And sometimes she's okay, sometimes she just growls at them.
But it sounds like you gave us 2 instances where your dog was aggressive to the man and the 2 children, and also ran across and bit the neighbor because maybe the dog thought there was a red ball or something involved.
Right.
So it's almost like somebody else had his red ball and he was going to be aggressive. So to me, it seems like the dog has some aggressiveness in him or her, just from what you're saying. Not that it's right or wrong, but.
Well, I just like to clarify. Oh, sorry. I just want to clarify the actual what happened. So the dog was in your backyard.
Yes, my dog was with me. I was watering the front yard, and we were okay. Just,
So it wasn't on a leash. He wasn't on a runner. It was just wandering around. But are you saying that you have a backyard and it's fenced in, and normally no?
No,
How do you?
my backyard has 2 poles.
Yeah.
I was showing you on the
Right, but I'm just trying to get through. So when the dog is in the backyard, it's tied up.
in the backyard. When is she tied up in the backyard?
Normally, every day, it's refined to the backyard.
She's tied up in the backyard when we are at home.
Right, so this was an unusual,
This was an unusual day that I just came and I started watering my front yard, and the dog was with me, and then she had one of these different kind of chains. Like I said, she had this very thin chain with me. When she ran suddenly, because we had been there for a while, but Tereska was there for a while. When she ran, it just got off my hand. I was shocked and surprised.
okay, so normally, the dog is restrained. And this was just because, what's her name again? Luma? What's the dog's name again? Bella, sorry. So this is because,
Right over there.
right, because she saw that red bowl and she equated it with something that her own bowl, or that cedar that was red.
Right.
And so, but normally the dog would not be off, she would be restrained. So is this the only time it's happened where she's gone to that yard?
Yeah. No, it's been to the yard before, but I chased it one time, and when I got over there to pick up the dog, well, Tereska was bent over petting the dog and said, "Oh, it's all right, I know Bella." And I was like, "No, Bella doesn't belong over here." And we have a runner in the backyard, okay? So there's a pole down here and a pole down here, and the leash is connected to the runner.
Right, right.
Okay? We have also a deck where she has a chain there and she has a doghouse, all right? And when we're not around, she's on the deck.
Okay.
When we're home, we let her go on the runner on the outside.
Okay, so 99.9% of the time, she is restrained.
She's
And this
secure.
just happened to be one of those days, because you can understand, neighbor. I mean, my husband's a runner, and he's been attacked 3 times. I think mostly because he's running, and they get, they're going to want to go after him, and they bruise his legs, and, it's always a... But normally the dog is not aggressive. It's not... It's just doing its thing. It's what they normally do, so...
I played with that dog to where I've had my hands in its mouth and every such thing. The most I see her doing is playing extra hard.
Right.
I don't ever see her being aggressive,
Right.
I've never seen that.
We have had friends, strangers to Bella, and they get to pet her and play with her.
I have people in the house all the time.
We asked 2 of them to come over here, but but not able, he's out of country, and the other one, another person that is our yard man, he had PTA meetings for his children, for his son. But these are strangers that have come to my house, and Bella is not to go and be vicious and attack them.
So, with that said, I don't know if the rest of the board feels confident that this will never happen again, or, I mean, how do you want to handle the rest of it?
My opinion, we don't have the other side here. We
Yeah.
don't have a hearing.
Right.
So I would entertain a motion to just table this and put it on the record.
Unless they're willing to come back and refile.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
May I ask Heather a question though? The other parties were duly notified, correct?
They were, I believe the response to my assistant was that they were not going to come.
All right, well,
So, but they were notified, we notify all parties.
I do not like having an ex facto meeting with the other party not being here.
Especially if it's the party that brought the complaint.
Well, I don't believe the dog better, to tell you the truth. When the police came over to our house, he said there was no skin breakage. And I think that she probably was trying to play and maybe may have got over exuberant and nipped her by accident. But I don't see her as biting, like, never.
There's no reports that the skin was broken that I see in my packet. But again, do I entertain a motion to,
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we table it unless the other party wants to come back and refile it.
do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I like to make, just say one thing. Would it be possible to please make sure the dog doesn't, I know it was an accident and everything, but just I've been bit by dogs and I love animals, but you can understand, if it wasn't this lady, it could be somebody else, and I appreciate that the dog brings you comfort and thank goodness that you found something to help you, but we really should be careful.
We're working on saving up for a fence,
There you go.
okay?
Well, good luck.
So, but everything that you had in this packet that you sent me, out of nature, we did that. We didn't have have the state tell us what we needed,
Right.
all right? She had all her shots. I followed whatever the town of Southampton wanted. I had her a $500 doghouse that's good in all weather.
Oh.
So, I mean, I have done that without being asked to. That dog has got everything, and like I said, she's mostly playful as far as I'm concerned. She's not aggressive.
The dog was quarantined, and another observation I made is that Miss Tereska, she's a nurse, and this incident happened between 4:30 and 5 in the evening, because after that happened, I was very upset. I went and talked to my husband, and we had prepared dinner, and then the policeman came in the late evening, and Tereska continued, in the yard, working and doing whatever. I didn't see her running into her house and sanitize and disinfect or anything. So that's what I was very shocked that we have police officers in the house.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Ayes got it. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Town Administrator's Report.
We can pass over me, Charlie, if you want. I did want to bring to your attention that the student and her parents are here. If it's at all possible, we can move that item up so they can be here and head out at the same time.
Yes. You're at the podium.
Already at the podium.
You're at the podium.
Yay.
Name, rank, and serial number.
My turn to speak?
Yes.
All right, so we're here to try to get some funds for Olivia to go to Smith Vocational.
Okay,
For
your
health.
name is,
Tim Stroney,
and what street do you live on?
5 Laurie Drive.
Thank you, Tim. I'm Charlie.
How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Okay. Basically, they're looking for authorization to be able to send their child over to Smith Vocational. The child wasn't on the list originally, and it's the parents' prerogative to try to send their child where they need to send their child. I will tell you that this will put us in the red in our budget, but given the fact that that's a budget that drifts in and out until school's actually settled, I don't think it's something that we have to be overly concerned with at this point.
You missed the deadline on signing up,
Yeah, that's definitely our fault. We missed the deadline for that.
just an oversight.
Yeah.
What grade are you in?
Go.
Your first year?
What was the deadline? I'm just curious.
Uh,
See, what happens is we set up budgets starting in March, and we do that based on the enrollment. And because they weren't included in that budget, they're in front of us now asking.
We were here during that process, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All those meetings?
All those meetings.
Yeah.
March, I wasn't here, so I appreciate that, Charlie.
So anyways, without going into all the logistics of this, do I hear a motion?
Is there any precedent, or is there anything that we're going to tip here by doing this, just so we know?
Whenever you make a decision for the first time, you set a precedent moving forward. As far as the financial state, I think Charlie already summed it up. With Smith Vocational, it's always one of those flex accounts, so. I can add more, but I didn't know if you wanted me to.
I just want to make sure we have enough background.
So as of when we had budgeted at the time for annual town meeting, we used the calculations that we had. We made reasonable estimates based on the number of students who generally go, generally don't go, and so forth on our calculations, based on the modified tuition rate of the $17,000 per student. From there, we came up with the number added to Westfield Vocational School, combined the two numbers and budgeted that line. As of this morning, based on the most up-to-date information we have as of this morning, we are looking at approximately, with the addition of one student, being at 21,000 in the red. But as Charlie said, we don't know who's actually going until it happens in September. We won't know a lot of those details until we move forward.
Okay, just for the sake of conversation, if we end up in the red, where is that money coming from?
Special town meeting free cash.
We'll have to
Because
just-
once you allocate it to the elementary school, which is the same pot of money, you can't take it back.
Okay, so we may have to go to town meeting to get it override. or-
In January, yes.
Free cash, which is not unusual.
No, it's not.
Heather, you said with the addition of one person, 21,000 in the red. Is this the one person?
This would
Okay.
be the one
I
person.
didn't know
It
if there
would
was
be.
another one that was
Nope,
involved.
tuition is 17,000, and without that additional tuition, we were already looking at about 4,000. But a lot of things, like I said, they can change. Kids move in, kids move out. Special education costs vary.
Personally, we're gonna have a problem with the budget later on, but I can't see keeping her out of where she wants to go. What do you want to go to school for?
The health technology.
Good deal.
I'm open for a motion.
Well, I feel that that's where she wants to go. I think we should make it happen. I'm a product of Smith School. Maybe not a good one.
Not true.
But it was a great school, and I really liked it there.
But you know, if we pass this, you gotta get straight A's, or we'll take one
We're
back.
checking up on you.
Just so you two can use
All
it on
right,
her.
we're out then. So,
We'll find out when you get a report card. I'm calling you.
Little pressure's helpful.
I'm still waiting for a motion.
Was that a motion?
Okay, I'll make the motion, we accept this student into Smith.
Second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just note that you're accepting that she can follow through with the application process. You can't actually make Smith's decision for them.
Hey, why not?
Just saying.
thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good luck.
Thanks.
We bounced. We bounced. That was,
That was 5E.
5E?
Yeah, I jumped around.
Wow, I guess you did. Yeah. All right, that's done. So, no updates from town administrator?
I can do it now, but I think a lot of people in the audience would prefer if they got to speak first. Just a thought. I'm more than happy to. You say the word and I'm up.
So, the next one's personnel policy, the continued meeting of Thursday night. Did we receive any written correspondence from anyone?
Yes, we received one document, and it's in the Board of Selectmen's yellow file. It is from Josette from the World of the Highway Department.
The world of the
Yes, it's its own world. It's separated from Town Hall, so it's its own dimension.
That was the only one, Heather?
That is the only thing I have received prior to this evening's meeting in writing.
All right,
Notice was sent out to everybody.
Email was sent out. I believe it was sent out Sunday. We had our server down on Friday, so unfortunately that wasn't an option.
I would like to open this up to public comment come in on this. Is everyone comfortable with that? Would anyone like to address the board relative to this? Okay, hearing none. Would the personnel board like to approach?
No, this is not for your project either. What we did is sort of put together, and this is the work of Jim Palermo, who's going to get up in a minute, and also Joanne, better known as Josie with one S, Alderman. And we thought we'd sort of summarize what we had done about two and a half years ago as far as looking at disability insurance for the town employees. I think we're fairly close to what Jim had mentioned at the last meeting, at our joint meeting, as far as cost. I think we're sort of in the ballpark. I think the only difference that I want to bring out is I think Jim was talking 60% of salary or hourly wage, and here we were trying to get exactly 75%. So that may account for some of the differences. And also, I based sort of my thinking on 30 employees that have benefits in town, and I'm not sure the exact number. I don't know if Heather knows what the exact number is. I forgot to talk to Donna today. So it may go up. I think it's at least 30, and probably more. With that, let me turn this over to Jim, who summarized and put this together. Thank you. And who didn't have a chance to be at the meeting.
Evening, Jim Palermo, Glendale Road. Let me just start by saying that we recognize that the short-term disability program that the town has offered its employees historically is a wonderful benefit. And I think that everybody on the personnel board would love to be able to continue it. The problem is we are the only town in Western Massachusetts that we have contacted that offers such a program. There's no legal obligation for us to do it. And what's most troubling is that as in its present form, it really poses an open-ended liability to the town, and one that could be very substantial. In the outline that we gave you a worst-case scenario. And, you know, again, people buy insurance for their home or car. They're not really hoping that their car's going to get cracked up or their house is going to burn down. But we have to think, because of our fiduciary responsibility to the town, of what our exposure could be. So even though it might be unlikely, a worst-case scenario here would be, for example, if 6 of our employees were to get in a minivan and decide to go to a Red Sox game in Boston and have an accident on the Mass Pike. If they were 30 employees making $20 an hour, working 30 hours a week, and they were out for the full 26 weeks, that would mean $70,200 of exposure to the town. And plus, for a period of 26 weeks, we'd have to go out and hire replacements. So assuming that we found replacements at $15 an hour, that would be an additional cost, bringing the total to $140,000, $140,400, as, again, a worst-case scenario. So the Personnel Policy and Procedure Board did everything that they could to try to provide some kind of protection for the employees, because we don't consider our job just to be strictly dollars and cents. Part of the fiduciary responsibility we have to this town is to guarantee, to the best of our ability, that we have good employees, and we do have good employees. My own personal opinion, we're not perhaps paying as much as we would like to, but as much as we can afford. And the same goes for fringe benefits. And the reality is we are cash poor as a town. So with that in mind, the Personnel Policy and Procedure Board invited in 2 people from insurance companies to give us an estimate of what might be involved here. And I'm leafing through this because I just got this today. I wrote it, but I don't know what order it's in. But we invited 2 insurance agents in to give us estimates of what it would cost to provide private insurance. The benefit of the private insurances would cap our liability and would also provide the infrastructure we need to monitor the program. Because as it stands right now, there's no requirements for a doctor's notice. We don't have people who can, and I'm not accusing anybody of having done it, but an insurance company makes sure that people are not taking actions that are inconsistent with their claim of disability, something we can't do on our own. So getting those, and I'll cut to the chase here, getting those estimates on the additional insurance, we found that if we compare what our actual experience has been in providing long-term disability to or short-term disability to employees who are injured off the job, that over the past 8 years that we looked at, our exposure was really not that bad. We had $839 on the low end, and 1 year we had 17,000 something, and that was, I think, through 2015, right? So we don't know anything that's current. But in order to make the insurance affordable, there would have to be a waiting period. In some instances, the premiums that we would pay for insurance would exceed the amount that we were actually laying out each year on the average. So it would actually add to our expense. And also, if we had a waiting period to make the insurance affordable, we would have to pay the first 30, 60 days, whatever, 8, 30, or 60 days for the waiting period, plus the premiums, and then before the insurance kicked in, and that would actually cost us more than what we have historically paid. Those are only estimates. It's not, we didn't consult an actuary, we spoke to salespeople and got their point on it. And I know that there was some discussion of maybe looking further into providing short-term disability private insurance, which we think that's great. But at this point, we think that the provisions in the revised rules and regulations should be adopted, specifically excluding that benefit, but embracing the new sick leave accumulation program that we've embraced, which is really designed to provide individuals who will purchase short-term disability insurance on their own a bridge where they would continue to get paid, actually at 100%, until their insurance kicks in. You know, it's not a pleasant thing to do. I think everybody wants their employees to be paid as much as you can, and we're certainly grateful to the wonderful work that people are doing in this town. But in our opinion, the present system is just not viable. It just doesn't make good financial sense. It's like saying, well, I'm going to risk my home won't burn down. I'm not going to carry the insurance. I mean, it just exposes the town to an expense that it just really couldn't afford. I don't know if you want any more specificity. I'm not sure I can offer much more, but are there any questions that I might be able to answer?
Thank you, that was great. I have a question. When you say worst case, that's based on 6 people. If we have 30, I mean, it'll never go that high, but that would be the worst case, which would be...
Right. It was a worst-case scenario, but something not out of the realm, because I'm sure that people get together to go to a ball game or whatever it might be, and I mean, God forbid they have an accident or something, but it's possible.
Yeah, that's definitely a scary thought that we could be in that position.
Right.
Absolutely.
A question, just to clarify the current benefit for everybody here and at home. You can get up to 26 weeks out if you come in with a, say, a doctor's note saying you need to be out, broken leg, whatever. And the department currently has a discretion of saying, granting that, saying yes or no?
I think if you look at the extent of the existing bylaws,
Yeah.
there's nothing like that. It just says that if you're out, you don't need a doctor's excuse or anything. You get 26 weeks at 75% of your pay. And that's another problem because there's no provision in the bylaws. Now, I might mention, I'm not familiar with the contracts, the collective bargaining agreements that have been negotiated, because those would be controlling. And if there are such provisions in the collective bargaining agreement, of course, it would apply to those employees. But for the unrepresented employees who are benefited and currently working for the town, they just go. And we can't call them up, and there's nothing in the bylaws that says, we want you to check into a doctor.
Really?
Or saying that we want you to check into our doctor.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Kemp here is behind there. You have a comment, because I thought you had to bring it to your department head, get approval from your department head to be out for any period of time.
Randall Kemp, Southampton Highway Superintendent. The procedure I've been using, and it's the one that I assume we have been using, the person has to bring in a signed doctor's certification of injury. I have to sign, there's a place for me to sign on the form that I either approve or disapprove of it. Then it comes to the select board, and there's the same procedure that you approve or disapprove it. So there's 2 layers of opportunity for someone to not approve it or to approve it.
And all I'm saying is that in the specific wording in the existing bylaws, there's no provision. That's the practice, and that's fine. If that's the practice and
Procedure
procedure.
and policy, maybe.
Yeah.
That's for injury.
Well, you're talking about on-the-job injury?
It's injury that results in an out-of-work
Right.
occurrence.
But if he's talking illness, it goes back to the original policy. It doesn't go back to your...
I've been given one form. I'm not sure if there are different procedures for different types. I've only been provided one form.
There is a different procedure, obviously, for workers' comp.
Right.
Because that's an on-the-job
FMLA.
injury. But I'm not contradicting Randall. I don't know what the
That's
actual...
But there's the underlying problem.
I would say that's one of my points. There's discretion in the current policy, which isn't good, which should be nailed down. But the other question I have is, somebody comes in and they're out for the full 26 weeks. They come back to work for 2 weeks. Can they then go out for another 26, or is it within a?
There's nothing that stops it.
So they can keep rolling this forward. So again, that's not a great, whatever way we go, we need to fix
Right.
issues about that, because a person can keep rolling then. Okay.
And remember, it's any injury or any
Right.
illness.
Right, and it doesn't have to be at work, it can be anywhere.
Right.
So.
In fact, it
we have
can't
to
be at
tighten
work.
up.
I mean, for this short-term disability, it'd be something away from work.
Right.
If it's at work, it's workers' comp.
And then, who administers this currently?
Right now, Don, I believe, is that where you
It comes to us.
ends up, I believe, in Don's office,
But it comes to us for a decision.
right?
It's the select board who administers it at the end. Donna's office simply just makes sure that the paperwork's in so that the pay is consistent.
Thanks.
Okay?
Well, Board, this was a continuation of the meeting that we had the other night. So we basically had two issues on the table. One was to adopt this thing in its entirety. The other one was to adopt it, but putting the sick provision, I guess it's number 13,
Yeah.
on hold for a while until it could be revisited. So the question's on the table. Someone needs to decide if they want to make a motion.
Well, I'm going to make a motion so we can just have a discussion. Then we can vote from there, whatever way it goes. I'll make a motion. Whoops. Do we want to let Mr. Kemp say something before I make a
I
motion?
opened it up to the public.
Okay.
Nobody answered. I gave
Oh, I
it
didn't
to
know
the
we were-
personnel board.
I didn't hear you.
Nobody, I
think there are
looked
lots
at
of
you
people that wanna talk.
specifically.
I know you did, but I don't know something I haven't heard. Okay?
This is, you talk about the 26 weeks rolling, Ron.
You heard last time what I thought. Okay?
Yeah, you don't need us to reiterate what we said at the last meeting,
I
or?
have the deepest respect of everybody in this room. I've worked with you guys in all different levels. I would more than happily give you the moment to speak.
Okay. I just want to point out, I believe that Jim stated a worst-case scenario of 17,000. You guys just made a decision not 20 minutes ago where you voted on a $17,000 decision with 2 minutes discussion. Just keep that in
It was
perspective.
140,000.
No,
Huh?
he's talking about the student at Smith.
No, I'm talking the worst case was not 17,000. It was 140.
In that range.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, not worst-case scenario, but our worst year was 17,000.
Yep.
Just, again, I want to restate that I think it's an
Apples and
important.
oranges on that one, or?
Well, yes and no. I mean, if you think that it's an important employee benefit for people that will go out and do manual labor all day, and then you go home and your back goes out, it's an important benefit for some of us. That's all I've got to say.
So
Thank you.
I think I know the answer, but are you advocating it stays in or that we change it?
I've been advocating that it stays in. Or there is a comparable benefit provided to employees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any way I go with this, I lose, you know.
That's why you're the chair.
That's why I'm the chair, because I get shot all the time, doesn't matter what I do.
Roger Ball, Glendale Road. You heard my comments from last time, and it's pretty much the same. I just like to ask you to postpone it again. And the reason being, we can fix the inadequacies that are in the program that we have right now, which I pointed out last time were strictly administrative, as I felt. Okay? It would be nice if, rather than sit here on the spur of the moment, people try to give comments, if the liaison for the highway could come down to the garage, sit and talk about it, you know, in a more comfortable atmosphere. Nobody's going to get up here and say anything because they're all nervous, and so aren't I. But
Doing well.
somebody's got to say it. So I'm just asking if you just postpone it again, bring Art and his members and Jimmy, and sit down and talk with us. Maybe you can explain to us why it's better. Maybe after listening to us, you'll say, well, this isn't that bad. Give us a shot.
Thank you.
Quick question, Roger? You know, his hearing aid, yeah. Are you talking about postponing everything or just?
Go ahead, but you have to speak up because
Touche. Are you talking about the sick time portion or are you talking about the whole
I'm talking about the 26 weeks.
Okay, so
okay.
the sick time portion, okay.
Keeping what we currently have intact.
That's all.
That,
I'm just kidding. Getting back a little.
okay.
Roger,
You know, rather than change it, I mean,
No,
if you
I
have.
hear you. I just didn't know if you were
I
talking
don't
about the whole
understand.
policy or the sick time.
I don't fully understand where this expense is that everybody's talking about. I've never seen any real numbers, but it doesn't cost the town anything unless something goes out on it.
Right.
And then that money is covered in the payroll. So actually, if a person goes out, say without abuse, the town's saving 25%.
But you have to rehire somebody to cover,
Okay.
is the question.
You don't always have to have somebody, I can't remember. I can't remember in the highway where somebody's been replaced when they were out. I can't remember, okay? But it's things like this that if we could talk about, maybe I'm wrong. Bring me the facts, I'd love to see them, you know? But not on a one-night thing here. Okay?
Your point's taken, Roger.
Okay. No more questions?
I'm not picking you up at the Big E with the golf cart again. That's it.
Yikes.
Scared the hell out of him when I rolled up. All right, we have a motion on the floor.
No.
No, we don't.
You made a motion for discussion.
No, I was gonna start one, then Mr. Kemp wanted to get up and talk, so I didn't.
I stand corrected. We don't have any motions.
Does anybody else want to speak? I mean, I didn't, are we all done?
Heather, you wish to speak when everyone else
Just
is?
really quickly, I just want to make sure it's very clear. My understanding, and I could be entirely wrong, Randall, correct me if you think I'm incorrect on this one, but we have a provision in each of the collective bargaining units that specifically states the 26-week provision. And as the personnel policy rules has spelled out numerous occasions throughout the document, I think even in this section for the sick time, that this only goes into effect where either the CBA is absent or if there's a contradiction in the policy, the CBA prevails. So in the case of the highway department, where it specifically spells out, I believe, Randall, correct me if I'm wrong, the 26-week piece, does it not?
We'd have to check.
Does it not spell it out? I'm almost positive it spells it out. I can go check briefly for a moment if you need. But my understanding is if it's already spelled out in the CBA, unless the collective bargaining unit decides to negotiate this provision. So say, Roger, you're absolutely correct. Say the town decides at some point that they wish to move forward and say, we're going to do another short-term disability program or a long-term disability program. You're absolutely right, Roger. The way to get everyone to understand it and get everyone on board is to have someone come speak to that unit so you guys understand what's going on. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that would have to be something that's negotiated, that you guys would say, yes, we want to do this. We want to put this in part of our policy. In the meantime, unless it specifically says in the highway union agreement, and I'll double check because we've been doing collective bargaining at the yin yang with the other two units as well, but unless it specifically says that it's absent.
I understand that, and that's really not the reason I'm here. At the end of the contract, the first thing that's going to be negotiated is, guess what? It's going to be
Roger,
your
first,
disability process.
need the microphone.
And I'm just trying to protect myself for the future, okay, because it's going to be dealt with sooner or later, all right? And it's going to be a bargaining chip on your part.
So you're concerned about in next 2 years when we open up negotiations for your contract again?
As it is now, the 20 weeks stands as it is for the duration of our contract. But once we open our contract, okay, now we got to deal with it again. So I mean, we're going through the process here. Maybe it doesn't have to be changed. Maybe we can make something work. This is all I'm saying. And avoiding a whole lot down the road with a new set of selectmen or a new whoever. Maybe a whole new highway department, I don't know.
But it sounds to me like you're trying to do contract negotiation in front of us right now.
Sorry, Charlie, I didn't hear you.
It sounds to me like you're trying to establish contract negotiations.
I'm not trying to establish anything. I'm just looking to see what's going to happen down the road. Because I've been here long enough to know exactly what's going to happen. The first thing that's going to come out is it's going to be used by the board or the town as a bargaining chip. I mean, it's happened. We went from 1 week pay to 2 week pay on the same system. You throw it up, case closed. If you don't agree to it, take it to court. It's been that way. Okay? You can look back and see. I lived it.
Mr. Kemp?
Just because my old background with the Labor Board, I would urge that we not make any representations at a meeting here that could bind us with regard to interpreting the contract, because I'm not really sure what's in the contract. But the little bit I saw, I didn't think it was explicitly provided in any kind of detail. But again, I didn't, see it in an official capacity. And the other point I wanted to make out was that the new sick leave policy allows people to build up very generous banks that would cover people up to 520 hours, allow them to build up a bank of 520 hours of sick leave at 100%, which should bridge the gap from the date that they become disabled until the time that some kind of insurance policy would click in. And Jim, I know you more about this than I do, but I understand the individual rates are not really prohibitively high. And
in our case, I ran the numbers and the calculations with the disabilities. We have short-term and long-term disabilities at our company, and I believe it's $16 and change. I just threw a number of an annual salary of $50,000. I didn't know where to start. So at $50,000, our short-term disability was $16 a month and change for 60% of your pay, and I believe if it went to long-term disability, it was $17 and change. Mm-hmm. And that, again, is at 60%. The first one goes for around 3 months for short-term. Then it would transition indefinite. It could be years for long-term. Yeah. Now, the 60%, if the premium is taxed, so if, let's say the town, just throwing this out there theoretically, if the town pays the $34 for their insurance, if that's the route we decide to go, and they claim it and they pay the tax on that, the benefit is now tax-free. So that's 60% of your pay, so that's not too far off from your full pay. If the town pays the 34% and you use it pre-tax, then you pay the benefit tax, which I wouldn't go that way. I'm saying that's the way it is with our plan. Right. I'm assuming it can happen here. So those are the numbers I was throwing out there.
And the only thing I'm suggesting is we are not hanging the employees out to dry. I mean, we're giving something, the sick leave bank. And there are all sorts of permeations that you've talked about. And again, I think what we are recommending is that we adopt the revised bylaws, this section 13, whatever it might be, and continue exploring ways of being able to provide coverage to our employees, either through sharing the payments or having the employees pay the payments or whatever it might be, and talk about that. But I think the bottom line is that the present system is a risk to the town, potentially a risk to the town, which it might not be able to afford.
Right, I agree with that. I think the 26 weeks is a lot of exposure that we should not have on the town. But then on the other hand, taking it down to 1 week a year, eventually it would take 26 years to get to the same level. And if somebody, right, if they get 1 week a year.
No, it's.
In the current policy, is that correct?
It's
2 weeks a year.
Yeah.
So it would be 13 years, they would be up to the 26.
But people are being grandfathered in.
But there's a catch on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you have it, you get grandfathered in.
Okay.
One-time deal. The new employee would be under what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think we have to negotiate something. I think the insurance is the first thing. To revisit that, let's see where that lands, and then see if we can't work something
Right.
from there. That's my 2 cents. So that would be at a meeting maybe we can have with the insurance company and you guys.
Just so we can clear this hurdle and
Hi.
for, oops, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Are you done? Lucy Dalton, Strong Road. I just want to know what you're voting on right now, because it's been a half an hour of conversation, and it seems like there could be a lot more discussions. So if you're voting on a
John is
PPP
going
board
to make a
policy
motion,
manual,
And that motion will tell you what we're voting on.
okay. Well,
I was just going to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the PQB for the new policies and procedures minus section 13, which deals with sick time and long-term disability, and study that section more. So in the meantime, the current sick time and disability policy will stay into effect.
thank you.
Did that, well, I see if there's a second. Second it for conversation?
I'll second it for conversation.
It just seems like there could be a lot more discussed about the whole manual itself, so. I didn't know if you had to make a decision tonight immediately.
Conversation?
Well, I mean, we did open it up, and I didn't see any other people come forward about the, not 13, but the entire system. And if nobody came forward and we've asked people,
13 is the issue as far as.
13's the issue, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think 13 definitely has to be revisited.
Okay, you ready for a vote?
Now, I just want to mention one more thing. So your motion is to accept everything less 13?
Correct, as we discussed at the last meeting.
May I suggest that you also add to your motion that we keep the present policy in force?
I did that already. That was part of my initial motion.
Somewhere between the phone calls and all that.
No problem.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So-
Yeah, I mean, the
Okay,
folks
go ahead.
deserve a good sick time disability policy, and obviously there's a lot of concern. You're all from the highway department? So I think going and talking to the folks, although you didn't all necessarily come to us, I think us going out to you makes a lot of sense. So we'll deal with that. But so we don't want to cut the benefits before we have a lot of conversation on it.
So just to be clear, the 26 weeks will be in there until we revisit it at a later meeting and make that adjustment.
Whatever's the current policy. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposition? Motion carries.
Thanks for coming, I appreciate it.
My next question to the board is, now that we've adopted this and we put 13 on hold, are we setting up a joint meeting with personnel? Or is this going to be a meeting with Mr. LeBrie and Jackie Sears?
I mean, I personally like to see a joint meeting, because I'm interested, and three of us can't be at the same
Right,
meeting.
that's why I'm asking the question.
I'd like to see the joint meeting if PQB is fine with it.
With us, just us and you, to nail this out, roundtable.
But,
And would you like the insurance company
yeah,
here as
Mr.
well?
LeBrie here
Insurance
was gonna.
company,
Right,
all
yeah.
the rest of that.
We're talking 13 and disability, right?
Right.
Now, we did make some changes last time, which were put in, right?
They're put in on the vote. What we need to do now is have Heather take and set that up, have this document, sent out to all the employees and all the rest of that, so they see it where it is.
I'm sorry, I just walked back in the room.
We voted to accept everything except
saw that.
section 13.
And that includes leaving in the 26-week
That's
pay
right.
for the time being.
So if you could send the document out eventually, I don't mean not tomorrow, but
Okay.
send it out so everybody sees this document with the fact that 13 didn't get passed, that the original 26 weeks are still there.
Okay, and when is the effective date of your passage of the remainder of the document? Is that as of today, as of tomorrow, as of next year? When does that go into effect?
the effective date of the entire document?
Of the document minus section 13. So it's essentially going to be the entire document except section 13 will be substituted with what's currently on the books.
My assumption is it's effective immediately as voted by the select
Okay.
board.
Thank you.
But Heather brings up a good point. So it's, in place of 13, it's the current sick time
The
policy.
current sick time policy.
Current disability.
That's,
Right.
and that's the reason why I wanted to go out to all the employees again, so they get a fresh document that, you know, you can put on the town website, whatever, and that way there, everyone sees it, so that when this discussion continues, we're all working on the same page again. Because there's too many of this piece here, piece there.
Can we set up that meeting now, so
I could set the meeting now, I don't know about PP board,
they're here?
I see them. Of course, Jim's gotta get his insurance guy, so
He's waiting for us.
All right, give me a date, and then I'll let you know.
when would personnel board like to meet with the board of selectmen?
We normally meet on Thursdays, as you know.
So,
25th?
when's our next meeting?
We haven't decided yet.
Weeks.
Typically, our meeting would be the 30th if we follow where we're going here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the 25th will work.
Is 25th work for everybody here?
Yes, I'll contact the my insurance, and if that doesn't work out, maybe I can contact another.
And I'll try to get some more information, Jim, as far as the number of people, average salary, that type of stuff. So I'll send that on to you as soon as I get it. Maybe you can send it to you.
If I get that sooner, I can pass it on, and then maybe he can show up with some numbers to expedite this.
Yeah, just a thought, to give Jim some leeway. Our next board meeting is the 30th. Can we give the 25th as the first date and the 30th as a backup date?
Well, we're gonna be normal business on the 30th.
This is normal.
Yeah, we're here till 11.
That's what scares me. All right. And Heather, I guess we decided our select board meeting is the 30th.
Okay. We'll talk more about regular schedule after that, just to make sure
Yeah.
we're good.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your careful consideration of the matter.
You're welcome.
We are listening. All right. I want everyone to realize and acknowledge the amount of volunteer work your board does on this. We do appreciate that, and we do acknowledge it.
They all the boards do, not just ours.
Art's front and center. Thanks a lot, right? All right. You don't want him to speak yet, right? We wanna go-
Whatever you want, I can hop up right now if you like.
Well, I guess because we got Randall just sitting here anyways. Randall, you want to do the Chapter 90 updates?
Update, or are you specifically asking about the way in which I develop a plan for the year?
That's the first thing. Then the second thing we want to do is do a quick overview of what projects you have ahead.
Sure. About the same list I presented to the board back in April 2016. Birchwood Drive, Lead Mine Road, Russellville Road, Fomer Road, Route 10 to Russellville, and then like 300 feet more. Brickyard from Gilbert to Westfield Town Line, Fomer and portions of Russellville would be milled. All the list I just gave you will be an overlay, which is like 1.5 inches of pavement over the top. Chip seal, we have Pomeroy Meadow Road, Montgomery Road, Cold Spring Road, County Road South, and Glendale Road from Pomeroy Meadow to Easthampton Town Line. The only exception there's a new technology that I and my foreman watched in Easthampton. They use it looks pretty amazing, and we may utilize that on Pomeroy Meadow Road.
Randall, I heard it killed the trees, or killed the leaves on the trees.
Well-
Is there any residual effect on that?
I don't know. I mean, I do know anecdotally that the more tree cover you have on a road, the less time you get in it, because it lets the road remain wet, and ice kind of does mechanical erosion on the road. A lot of our roads where there is heavy tree cover, we end up doing a lot of pavement maintenance on. So it could have a slightly
I understand, but you can't let them all die.
advantageous effect.
Over the road, then you got it. It's a brand new thing. I heard about it, saw it in Easthampton.
It looks good. I'm going to
Cool.
continue to look into it more and evaluate it for our use.
Yeah, it looked really cool.
That's most of the pavement work we've got. We also, we acquired the new roller and trailer. That's done. We still have to pick up the trailer. But I don't know if you remember some of the new members. We had a roller and trailer burn up a couple of years ago. We've replaced those. We're going to see if we can't do some work on some of the gravel roads. The rains have eroded them a little bit. That may or may not be Chapter 90, depending on how much we have to do. And what else?
Well, there was the outstanding question of how you formulate this.
How I formulate it. So I sent you guys a statement on that, and I will just read that. I have to develop the plan for the entire year by the end of winter in order to have all Chapter 90 and other work for the upcoming fiscal year included in the Hampshire Council Government's materials bid to comply with procurement requirements, which Heather is constantly on to make sure I do right. I utilize two main resources in developing a plan for the year: a June 2012 Southampton Pavement Management Report, evaluation and forecast of pavement conditions and maintenance requirements, which was prepared by Pioneer Valley Planning Commission. And I, sometimes with one or both of my foremen, drive around at the end of the winter to evaluate the roads and judge rates of degradation and try to apply sound judgment as to prioritizing pavement work, as well as which methods of pavement preservation to employ.
On the roads that you're proposing to resurface and so on and so forth, do you think any of this will be done this year?
Hope so. I'm meeting with Chip Sealer tomorrow, and the pavement lane construction for the overlays as soon as I can get it scheduled. And if it doesn't happen in the fall, it'll be all ready to go in the spring, just as long as it happens in the fiscal year. The procurement piece will be done. If not, we just rebid them in the spring's procurement package, and they've already been approved through Chapter 90, so they don't need to be reapproved unless we change the scope of work.
Before we move into the East Street Bridge, East Street stuff, does the board have any questions or Randall on any other material?
No.
I guess I'm going to ask you one question. I don't know how involved you are, but at the Finance Committee last night, we were talking about the need to do a Chapter 30, or actually 149 bid for the AC unit and then controls, boiler, hot water tank. Are you involved with that project?
No.
Okay, so.
That's the library.
I know, but I didn't know if he was involved. Heather's got to be involved too.
Oh, Heather's neck deep in it.
Yeah.
So I would say the only other factor is traffic. I mean, there are roads that may be slightly better or worse than others, but if they are main routes, they would go a little higher in my priority list. I have talked to a traffic engineer recently, and what I want to work on is taking the pavement plan that we've been using and turn it into more of a working document. I guess there are softwares out there in which you can do that, where you assign different roads numbers, and that's their pavement score, and it helps you forecast what your priorities should be. So I'm trying to use the tools available.
I understand. Mr. Kemp, Mr. Pellegrini had some questions a few months ago, and he's looking to go to the podium. If you don't mind, I'd like to have him.
Sure.
That all seems to make sense. Just a couple quick questions, though. How do we get a road on this list, and then is there oversight by the council or the board to override or have input. And I understand Randall's very qualified at it, but it's one person making a decision for millions of dollars of town money on roads and prioritizing them. And I understand he looks at the condition, but the letter he wrote to the planning board on the condition of the road I live in was so far out of whack and degraded, it was beyond repair. And my question is, why is that not on the list? And how has that been overlooked for the 10 years I've lived up there for that road? So to me, understanding that leaving this up to one individual and kind of a wet the finger process may work in some of the highly visible parts of town, but it may not be working in other parts. And how do we make sure that this money is spent properly and most effectively across the town? And I have a very big financial interest. The planning board almost denied my subdivision because of the condition of a town road. I had to spend an extra, I want to say about $4,000, $3,000 to $4,000 with a consultant, the town consultant, as we went through gyrations and how we could either deny or approve my road, the road we're doing on Quigley Road that we're putting in off of Crooked Ledge Road. So my concern is, as I go forward and develop that property up there, the next time I go in front of the planning board, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, who knows what it is, to develop that land further, it will be denied, and then I will have to sue the city or the town, and it's going to cost us money, and we're going to end up with that same result. So how do we look at working together to get Crooked Ledge Road on this? And it's not just Crooked Ledge roads, it's other secondary roads, and how does, my question and concern would be, we need the select board to take more of a control and a plan to that process. And I like what Randall was saying about the software, but it's got to be more input than one individual. I mean, there's $900,000 in that Chapter 90 fund, and we average about $250,000 a year. That's substantial money.
Well, Mr. Pellegrini, I'm trying to list all the questions you were
There's a lot.
I'm trying here. I really
I apologize. I got a lot in my mind.
Okay. If you don't mind sitting down for a second, I'd like to have Mr. Kemp come
Yep,
to the
not
podium.
a problem.
First question is, how does the road get on the list?
How does the road get on the list? Basically, I would have to evaluate that the road was so bad that it would need to get on the list. And we've discussed this road throughout this process. I have feelings about Crooked Ledge, but it may or may not need, they're not only pavement.
Let's take Crooked Ledge out of the equation. How do you put a road on your list that you determine that you need to move forward with it?
I look at a number of factors: traffic, pavement condition, and in my short experience in Southampton, the rates of degradation, and then try to prioritize in that way.
So it's you
And just so you know, we have done work on Crooked Ledge in the last couple months. It's not like it's completely ignored.
I'm trying to say generically how you do this. I'm not trying to focus on Crooked Ledge.
Okay.
Okay? I mean.
Well, that seems to be the focus.
Well, I understand that, but I'm trying to keep this as neutral as possible.
Sure.
The second question is, how do we move forward with Chapter 90 money? Well, I know how we move forward with Chapter 90 money. You present that to the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen as to what roads you want authorization to seek Chapter 90 money.
You hired me to make those decisions.
And the mechanism is that if a resident comes to the Board of Selectmen and says that there's a concern on a road, then that becomes an issue with the Board of Selectmen as to what your process is.
Sure.
That has never happened on this road that I'm aware of, keeping it neutral. But, you know, no one's really coming to us on streets other than the East Street issue. And the lights on Palmer Meadow Road, and the intersection on Wolcott and Rattle, or the intersection on Gun Road and Pleasant Street. It's just occurring to me how many people come to us with street issues, and Bleemer Road for plowing, and so on and so forth. We end up as the board, as the mechanism that goes back to the highway superintendent and says this needs to be focused on. So I guess that sort of answers the question in an indirect way.
It does, and I think it's fair for a small town. I understand that. Can I consider this a formal request to put Crooked Ledge Road on this list? Because I just...
How about you stand up at the podium, just because it's recorded and people want to hear?
That's fine, that's fine.
I'm not trying to be
No,
disrespectful.
that's fine. I need the exercise.
I have no problem, and I don't think the board does, of you going on record saying that you feel the town of Southampton should focus more resources on Crooked Ledge Road for its upgrading.
Absolutely, and it's not just in the bringing it to standards that we hold the rest of the people that build roads in the town, and I'm not saying we have to get to that, but some pavement that's not cracked in unbelievable proportions, a little bit of drainage, basic stuff, because you know, we do have laws, state laws, that give me the right to subdivide my land, and by not maintaining and improving a public way, that is putting a liability onto the town. Now, granted, it's putting stress on my shoulders, and it's going to put a financial burden on my shoulders to press that, and I don't want to get there. So I'm more than willing to work with the select board also on that, too.
Well, you have now put on record the request for the
Thank
town
you.
to focus on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last, I had a side item where I was asking about some plowing of roads that were not public ways. Are we going to address that here, or are we going to address that at some?
We should address that, but we're not going to address it tonight because, to be quite honest with you, I never prepped for it.
I wonder if Randall would have just the answer on those, or if you need to prep. 'Cause
I
one-
think we need, first of all, it's 90 degrees out there, and I'm not even thinking about it, but.
And that's fine, but the main thing is definitely Crooked Ledge Road. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to forward a report to the select board. Mr. Pellegrini's consultant sent a report to the planning board that said Crooked Ledge was completely fine for the additional traffic that the subdivision would produce. So it, you know, I may have an opinion about it, but
We took
It's-
a concerned citizen's request into consideration.
okay.
We have not done any analysis of it, and nor am I prepared
Well, I'd be happy to
do
give
an
you some-
analysis of it at this moment in time.
Information on it. Thank you.
I just want to note that that was a traffic study, not the condition of the road, how it was made, and that is what the denial was almost on, was not the amount of traffic on the road. So the two different things, and that is not what Fuss and Neal looked at. They did not look at the construction of the road.
I did ask for evaluation of that.
I know, but it's not a citizen's responsibility to rebuild a public way. That's why they didn't look at it. So I just want to make sure you guys understand.
I'd like to now move into the East Street project and the bridge, unless there's any other questions relative to this.
I have no
Okay.
questions.
Randall and I met with the, Randall, you want to come up to the podium, please?
Sure. How much, just,
Don't
All my-
print
all
all
my-
that paper.
that's a wrong project.
I have-
That crate is East Street.
I understand that, and I'm trying to give them the quick and easy.
Sure.
Where we're at and where we're going, and when it comes time to take a shovel out, then I'll call them.
Very good.
Okay. Every time somebody brings in stacks of paper, it's like, this is the wrong forum for
I
that.
want to be prepared for questions.
Randall and I had a meeting with the engineering company that basically is doing the design on East Street. Now, this has been going on for a long time. And it appears to be that the problem is it's basically two phases. There's from Route, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it's from Route 10 to East Street Bridge, and from East Street Bridge to County Road. If one is to look at that road and look at the increase in pedestrian traffic as well as vehicle traffic, that bridge, which is 80-something years old, is a bottleneck. So we had a long conversation with the engineering company, and they came up with the approach of applying for a grant from the state. Not the grant that you're seeing for small bridges. This bridge is too big for that. But it's called the Small Town Rural Assistance Program. The hope is if we apply for that money, we may be able to get that money, and within the next 2 years, reconstruct that bridge. If we reconstruct that bridge, then it should free up redoing the street. My personal feeling is you don't want to do the street and then have this bottleneck on that bridge. So it'd be more advantageous for everybody to have the bridge done first.
If we wait to do the street, will we lose any funding?
No, because it's chapter 90, isn't it?
Chapter 90 for the design, the actual construction will be under the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program. It's a different pot of money from the state.
Does it have dates attached to it?
Granted, I've only got 2 years of experience with it, but it seems like if you can get a project ready, it can sometimes stay on the TIP for years and years, and unless something major happens, it doesn't go off the TIP. For example, Glendale Road from Route 10 to Pomeroy Meadow Road has been on the TIP for a while, and it's taken a while to get the design finished, and that's sort of wrapping up. And all they'll do is if it's estimated to be on the TIP for 2014, they look to the towns to tell them how much longer the design, and they might move it forward. So I think we're on 2018 for Glendale. So it may just get pushed out further. East Street is currently on the TIP for 2020, if I'm remembering correctly.
So this grant application, having the engineers do the grant, is probably around $4,000. Randall's looking to take it out of his expense account from the highway department to get this project moving, but he's also simultaneously submitting an application for chapter 90 money. We don't know if we're gonna get the chapter 90 money, but if we do, then we won't be taking it out of our expense account. But we have.
But I think it's important enough where if we can't get chapter 90, I think $4,000 to try and get the bridge repaired is well worth it. And I think Charlie's in agreement.
And the bridge estimated cost is 1.5 mil.
Widen the bridge?
Yes. Well, ultimately, that's the goal, is to widen the bridge, because you don't want the new East Street design incorporates sidewalks and pedestrian accommodations. And so basically, if you built it to that, you'd build sidewalks up to a bridge where it's 2 lanes wide and there's no way to get across it. So
Bottleneck, yeah.
The whole idea is to get that done, get it wide enough so that when the streets are built, it just matches right up and we keep on going. And if you looked at the pictures I sent around last year, Jim, you weren't on the board, you should have saw the decking, how the coverings came off and everything else. You're actually seeing the plating and everything else because all the asphalt's gone. The water's getting underneath that and lifting it up when it freezes. Forget about looking at the guardrails. They're not gonna look at it.
Now, what's the liability on that? Should we have somebody look at that bridge and see what maybe you should reduce to?
The state engineers have done an inspection on the bridge. We've requested a copy of their last inspection report. I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet. And the last inspection report basically said the bridge is, I believe the terminology is obsolete but not deficient.
Right.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. The crossing of the horse and buggy is fine. Remember, it was built
Yikes.
80-something years ago.
It'd be nice if they put a weight limit on it so we know whether we're within that.
There is.
I mean, maybe it has to be reduced, possibly.
We're waiting for the report from the state
Okay.
engineers, but they're the ones that are gonna tell us.
Right.
But they've already done that inspection, so.
Your budget I'm sorry, your
We're-
budget will handle this?
Can't see that.
We may not do something else at the end of the year, but I think in the scheme of things, it's well worth the investment if we can try and get money for that bridge.
When we talk about prioritizing things in town, streets and that, this is coming to the top.
Agree.
This is one of the main streets in the town.
Yeah, it's in bad shape.
And think about it, if we had to close that bridge, and I'm not saying we're closing that bridge, you're either crossing at Moose Brook or you're going to Gun Road. Yeah. We're gonna have to have a town hall annex.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, I mean, this is, we're having a meeting with Representative Cocott in another week to see if we can get him to help us move this forward. So that's where we're at for priority.
It looks like the application needs to be in by next month, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
Pretty soon. I was hoping you guys might vote on signing the, don't you have the contract? You have the contract for, is
VHB contract?
I don't
that
have
what
the
we were gonna do?
contract.
Or at least vote to support going for
Would the
it?
board vote to authorize me to sign the contract when it becomes available to expedite this?
The contract to VHB for
Yeah.
roughly $4,000?
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when the contract gets done, give me a yell, and I'll sign it for the board and we'll keep going.
Very good. We'll talk more about it
Now-
Tuesday.
The next question was,
I just had one point on that. Could we springboard on Crooked Ledge Road there? Because it does qualify for that same, I looked up that grant. I'm just looking to help the town save money, but Crooked Ledge Road construction rebuild would qualify for that same grant. And if we're gonna pay a consultant to write, economies of scale. That's all I'm looking for, and that's all I was just gonna put out there. I did read the grant.
I give you 2 points for this.
Thank you. I'm really trying to get creative to help. I'm a taxpayer. I don't want to
Yeah.
see the money just
Yeah.
spent frivolously. But East Street Bridge, absolutely agree. Could not agree more. That thing is a train wreck.
Randall, the next thing was going to be the curb cut bylaws. Did you want us to do?
I was just going to say, we might want to wait on that, because if the first policy I have on there passes, the rest of them will be moot for 2 weeks, including that one. And then you won't need Randall's explanation tonight.
Okay. We've already scheduled our meetings.
No, you just said August 30th is the only thing, but I need to know what the board's regular schedule is so we can get people back in the loop. And please note that if you do go with August 30th, I believe the treasurer and town clerk and building commissioner meet the other week. So there'll be meeting weeks you're not here, so you could look at it in the positive and say town hall's being utilized more frequently, or in the negative and saying we're wasting more electricity. So whichever way you want.
So it should be the 6th to meet with town clerk and all the rest of that.
So it would be the week of the 23rd, the week of the 6th, the week of the 20th, and so forth, starting in August 23rd. But that's next week, so I assume the board probably wants a week off or so.
Then may I suggest this? That we're already meeting with the personnel board on the 25th. We keep our meeting on the 30th, but if we satisfy everything on the 25th, we'll just cancel our 30th, and then we'll go into the 6th for our meetings.
So we got to schedule the 30th and the 6th right now.
Yes, and the reason for that is the personnel review stuff.
Okay.
If we don't get things wrapped up on the 25th, it gives us another day to do it.
Fine with me.
That work?
That's fine with me.
Sounds good.
Okay?
And that's going to stay at 6 o'clock, correct?
No, I was thinking 4.
Whatever time you want, just work it with John.
6 o'clock it is.
Maybe retired people.
What'd you say to me? Okay, so we got our schedule set up. Got East Street Bridge done. Heather, do you want to give an update, or you want me to jump right into the,
I can actually do both if that's okay.
why don't we just do both and be done with it? Don't laugh. You could end up here, too. It's just a simple vote of the town.
All right, so this is what we have here. A couple subsections go through procurement. Handrails, there was a change of staffing for the company. We have finalized the agreement with for handrails, so we're just waiting for all that stuff to catch up. We should be underway shortly. Hopefully by September, we'll have the handrails in, and it will be before ice and snow season, which will be great. Police store, if you remember, previously at a town meeting, we had appropriated funds so that the police department could take out the garage door, construct a wall within the garage, and add a separate door to go into booking. That was something that had been found in one of the inspection reports that was done, I believe, by the state. We are underway with that. It has a couple components to it, but right now we're working with the procurement ends, making sure we include prevailing wage and so forth, and we're hopeful that that will move forward shortly. As far as the vest, the ballistic vest for the police department, we're also working on those. Right now we're just confirming which state contract they're under to make sure we can match the price, because it's over $10,000. We are also waiting to just confirm the documentation in the grant that it lines up and we can move forward before actually being awarded the grant. We're verifying whether it is an entitlement grant or one that is a competitive grant. So once we have that answer, we'll be good to roll. HVAC for the library. Where we are with that currently, we have worked with the consultants on this piece. We've had a few meetings. We have all the information, I believe, to move forward and start setting up dates of when things are due. We've had the consultants break down the bid into a base bid and then 3 alternates so that we can cover everything. In that way, in the event that we run out of funds earlier on because something costs more than we expect in that order, we still get the priorities. The first thing that is the highest priority for the library is to have the control systems updated. So that is the base bid. Everything after that is an alternate. Those include, and this may not be in the specific order, the AC unit, the boiler, and the hot water heater. So all those pieces are there. The problem we ran into is when we originally had appropriated these funds at annual town meeting in 2015, in May, we were not aware at the time that we were going to have other complicating factors, prevailing wages and so forth, that essentially double if not triple your labor in some cases. It's always fun, right, John?
Yeah, I don't understand why we didn't know that we're going to have prevailing wages.
We didn't know that when the library had gone out for just quotes.
Right.
And what happened was the companies that they had quoted with don't do a lot of work with the municipalities, so they apparently weren't aware of it. So when they gave their numbers based on the labor, they weren't giving prevailing wage numbers.
The numbers we used weren't appropriate.
Yes.
Right, what happened was Capital Committee, when they first got the information, said, look, consolidate this, put it together so that it's, we assumed everything was gonna be under prevailing wages. When they presented it to us, that's what the assumption was.
That didn't work, huh?
Nope, there we go.
Now,
So,
I would say while you're there, the base bid's the controls, which is good. Met with the library folks last night at the finance committee, that's why I asked this. The secondary one, they said the AC unit was the second most important, so I'm assuming that's alt 1? Or should be?
base is, the
Is the
base is
controls.
simply the HVAC controls.
Right.
And then it's the AC, and then I believe it's either the hot water heater or the boiler. I'm not sure which order, I can't recall.
So they're hoping to replace the base and
They
the
would
alt.
like to do the first 2 if at all possible. Here's a little background. So as Charlie had previously stated, when this was originally before the Capital Improvement Committee, the idea was to get all of this project done at one time, because you want, the same person installing it, you want everything to be compatible and so forth. As we've moved forward on the project, it appears it's going to be a lot more pricier than we had anticipated. There was the use of a consultant, which we hadn't originally budgeted in or planned in the first place. Thank God we did. They've done a phenomenal job drawing up all the detailed plans, the sketches and so forth, and all the specifications specific to each item of what we're really looking for, which we would have had no clue whatsoever where to go with that. Problem is that amount of money, which was about 6,000 some change, ate away at the original allocated, I think it was like 47,000. Drops it down to about 41K. Estimated cost of just the base unit and the AC puts you up over 41 to closer to 45, and that's a conservative estimate. Also keep in mind that when we go out to bid on things, we don't know where people are going to come in on bids. We have guesses based on what we've had for quotes previously, but we actually don't know. We ran into that with the handrails where we had expected to be much higher. The number came in for one bidder significantly lower than the others. Substantially lower.
Substantially, like, we don't get it.
So you don't know.
Is that the one we're using for the handrails, where they don't have employees here?
They had an employee, but we don't know if that was
The employee
related.
they had left after they,
So one employee knows how to do the handrails, huh?
no, that employee that gave us the pricing left.
But the pricing's firm, so we're good.
Good.
All right, so in other words, where we are with this project is as John has previously stated, the library did meet with FinCom last night to apprise them of the situation and the financial state of the matter. There's going to be needing to be some decisions on the part of the select board moving forward with this. We do have a special town meeting coming up in October. At the minimum, we may want to consider putting funds in so they can at least do comfortably both the HVAC controls and the AC, so that when we go out to bid and get the bids back within the time we have to make a decision, the funds are available. One of the other possibilities is to look at seeing, what our guesses are for the entire project and funding the whole thing with additional funds from special town meeting. Those are just some things to keep in back of your mind.
Question we talked about last night.
Yes.
Are we getting ready to send the bid out now, so we'll have some actual numbers by town?
Well, here's the
meeting?
problem. So we don't want to send them out too far ahead of town meeting, because if it turns out that we want to go to town meeting for the additional funds, we need to make sure it's within that 30-day acceptance window, because if we get answers back too soon from the bids, and we have to make a decision on who we're going to go with within 30 days, if our finances do not permit, we cannot go with someone above the amount we have. So if the funds are not currently appropriated, we're stuck.
But the average 149 process is about 6 weeks.
Well, it is, but even still, you want to make sure you're close enough to we don't know when the date's going to be in October till later in the agenda.
But we wouldn't get the bids open until the end of September, 1st of October, if we sent them out tomorrow.
I don't think we were planning 6 weeks. We were planning about 3 or 4.
Well, the central register, you gotta,
Central register is much quicker than it was before. Essentially, I posted today, it goes in next Wednesday. It's 1 week turnaround these days.
you gotta
Calm
have
buys
it-
is
You gotta have it
instantaneous.
in yesterday for next week, I think, Tuesday for the following Wednesday.
But
So we can't do it the next Tuesday till the following Wednesday. So
But it's
that's
still
2
only a
weeks.
week out. It used to be 2 weeks on the bid. But
Right.
regardless, I think we had looked at doing it.
Either way,
I think we should get it out now, because we're gonna be so close. We don't wanna go to town meeting with an estimate, because we may not be close.
No, you don't want to go to town meeting with an estimate. However, you need to have a number before you put it on town meeting. You're going to need to come up with a number if you choose to do this on town meeting before you get the bids back.
I don't think so, if you do it quick. I think we can get it out, have a number by the end of September, as long as that gives you enough time to put it in October. And maybe the town will say we want base plus alt 1, alt 2, who knows? I don't want to go to town meeting and have a number that's sketchy, then go back and say, the bid's opened, now we need more. We should know what we're presenting to the town, I think.
that's what happened the first time.
Yeah.
We didn't have a number that was,
And now, if we go for the AC and the controls, it's gonna be heating season pretty soon, so hopefully you get a company that's looking for a small 2, 3, 4-week project, bids low and gets in there. I don't know. It happens all the time. So I would get it out in the street as soon as we can.
well, let me ask you this, can we just jump ahead and pick a date for town meeting?
Is there any reason we can't?
I don't see a
It's
reason.
on your agenda, you're just
Yeah.
jumping around on me.
I'm looking at October 18th or the 25th, and I'll be candid, if it's the 25th, I won't be here.
So it needs to be on a Tuesday, because that's always the date of town meeting.
Does it have to be, or that's just history?
We do it on Tuesdays.
So it doesn't have to be?
You'd have to pull the bylaws. I know the annual town meeting is depicted on a Tuesday.
I can do the 25th, not the 18th. Is that what you said?
I can do the 18th, but I can't do the 25th.
And just keep in mind, if you'd be so kind to not be mean to the town clerk, it is presidential election season, so the first Tuesday in November is the elections, and for those who haven't had a lot of hands-on, presidential contested election season is chaos weeks before, especially with the ability to vote early and so forth. So if we could stay away a couple weeks from it, it would probably be easier for them.
I'll change my mind. I can do the 18th. I just won't be here during the day.
Do the 18th? 18th?
Okay, you got it.
Okay, town meeting's posted for the 18th.
Okay, so we can work with that, John. The biggest thing to keep in mind is the special town meeting needs to be printed on the warrant no later than 14 days prior, which means that it has to be posted in every place it needs to be by the 4th of October.
So we get the bid out quick, I guess is what you're saying, right?
No, I'm saying I think that's fine, we just got to get the consultants to get back to us and make sure we have everything ready to go. But I think we could theoretically do it.
They're gonna do the drawings, the book, everything?
I don't know if we'll all be back in time for that. We can try.
Oh.
So,
So the priority may change on this anyway, because it looks like by the time this gets approved, their AC being the priority is gonna be, now gonna be heat.
Well, actually, no, because the boiler and the hot water tank, from what I heard from last night, is a consultant said, this could last for 2 years, 5 years, 8 years more. So it's not a priority.
Okay.
Yeah,
So the heat still is working, it's just the AC that's out?
yeah.
Okay.
And they said their windows don't open, so we need to do it.
Okay, Heather,
I can move on?
move on.
Okay. Kona Park Pavilion roof, we're still working with that, waiting for some dimensions and specs from Mark Reed. He said he'd get them to me around August or so. Just some compliance reminders in general that we've been making to boards, committees, commissions, and all department heads. Essentially, $2,500 or more for a purchase requires a procurement order. And anything that's in that realm anyway, they should be coming to see me just to make sure we double check and make sure there's no additional procurement requirements needed. If you come at a lower amount, we're safe when we get to a higher one. So, Whittemore Bridge piece, that is a joint project between Southampton's Conservation Commission, Easthampton's Conservation Commission, and the Pascomic, is that how you say it, Virginia? Pascomic Land Trust. This project's currently on hold. We're working on the bidding documents that were provided for us by PVPC through LTA funds, local, I don't know what the technical assistance, I want to say the T is, from the town. So they have put that document together for us. We are currently in hold to make sure that Easthampton and Southampton are both A, on the same page, and B, we have the funds to move forward with this project. We do have a grant from the state that was awarded to all three entities, and I believe in the amount of $50,000. It's I believe, a matching grant. Does that sound right? Was it matching? No, it was in, that was a matching grant.
No, they're giving, that's paying for the bridge,
Ah,
but the towns have to, the two
Gotcha.
municipalities have to do all the other work.
I stand corrected. So it was $50,000 coming in for credit for the bridge. The trails up to the bridge and the parking lot would be on us. So currently, as we speak, we are holding off on this project until we can make sure that we have the funds available to move forward. Greenway, just an update on this piece. Back in, I want to say 2012, the town had voted to approve 2 articles. The first was the land grant relevant to the Greenway, and the second one was for administrative costs relative thereto. The project, those funds conversation came up this week or this past week. We looked into it, and because as you may recall, the town is no longer in receipt of the land grant for the Greenway project, we actually said, thank you, we're going to have to pass on this opportunity until we get our ducks more in a row. The DOR, Department of Revenue, has said that we are not able to utilize the other funds that were allocated for such purposes. We will have to go back to town meeting to get the administrative costs reallocated so we can continue to pay for town council assessments and so forth, or appraisals. Okay, any other questions on procurement while I'm on this piece? Excellent. Community cabinet grants, just a couple updates. First one is the human resource one for the wage and class chart is in progress. Don Jacobs came into town again today. He met with both the fire chief and I believe members of the highway department to start going over the job descriptions. Again, the purpose of this project is to look at where people fall in the wage and class rate and get everyone up to the right pay eventually as to where we need to be competitively with our surrounding communities and for the jobs. The first piece is obviously to get everyone internally correct so that you don't have a position that should be higher than someone else at the moment. So once all those positions are satisfied, I think the conversation has been that we're trying to get everyone eventually on the direction of correct pay competitively. So he is working on those. He has a deadline for most people, I think, for next week for any of the questionnaires he has out there, any of the information to get them back to him. Once he gets those back, he will continue putting those into his current scoring chart, and then at that point, we will sit down with the Personnel Policy Procedure Board and review the information job descriptions before they go back to the employees for approval, then to the appointing authorities, and ultimately to the Select Board for everyone's sign off. And that will include the PPB in the middle of that. Okay. Sian, she's so glad you gave me the opportunity to talk. I know. Okay. Government structure charter. So we are still working on this project. This is with Bernie Lynch. He is supposed to set up a meeting with me in a week or so. He was waiting for Don Jacobs' organizational chart. So he has it for his documentation and commentary. Upcoming weeks, board committee commission meeting is tomorrow night from 6 to 7. Maya training, we have one on Thursday. This week's training is creating the respectful workplace. Unfortunately, our instructor a few weeks ago was unable to attend. She had her times wrong. She'll be there on Thursday. Most of the entire highway department's coming, which is fantastic. And she's bringing donuts, in case you didn't remember that piece. So, past week or so, we had problem to productive Maya training. That was great for a lot of department heads showed up. I believe we had the fire chief, the police chief, Randall from the highway. Who else came? Joanne Spath from Board of Assessors. Is that everyone? I think that was Geraldine Swanson. I think that's it. But it was a great meeting. They gave us some great tools to go over. I think the instructor was very informative, very helpful, and I think people will enjoy her again on Thursday. And she comes back one more time this month on the 30th for Management 101. If there's any other trainings we have, we can always contact Maya, and they will see what they can set up, whether it's one that they have listed or one that we'd like them to create. We can work with them, places, time, and so forth. Finances. Financial plan is currently back up and running again. It's in the hands of the Finance Committee. They've been working on that. That is a 5-year plan projecting out revenues and cost estimates for a period of time. Financial management manual or guide we've been working on diligently. Right now we're waiting on a piece back from Margaret Larson on the capital improvement side of things, and we also have a couple of the policies we're waiting on. I think the Finance Committee was working on a budgetary piece to put in there, and Vicki was working on a section for debit cards, and Donna was working on an investment section. So once we get these pieces ready to go, we will put them together. Financial management guide, as folks may recall, was one of the suggestions of the auditors that we look into establishing some additional financial policies. So I think they'll be happy to see that in play. We started our first finance check-in meeting last week. We're going to be doing it on the first Tuesday of the month if we can do it around 10 a.m. It's myself, the assessor, the treasurer, and the accountant. We just sit down and make sure we're on DLS's schedule of things upcoming, what's due, taxes, tax rate, etc., free cash, whatever it may be. Okay, we'll also be building in next month, starting to look at the audit from the last year and see what other additional changes we need to make. One of the other things on that piece is Donna has been working on getting all the pay into one spreadsheet for all town employees excluding the school. She'll be able to finish a little bit more once she now incorporates in the new personnel policies and procedures as adopted this evening. And then we should be able to get out sheets to everyone once she finishes for their employees to sign and also the department heads to sign off on, then the select board. Those forms will then be filed in the personnel files of all employees upstairs. So we will have that. That again complies with the request of the audit. IT updates. There's a virus alert that Art was kind enough to send out to everyone. He did 2 or 3 pages of explanation. Essentially, the rule of thumb should be if you don't know who it's from and it has an attachment, do not open it. If you think someone sent you something, please do call first. Okay. That is the ransom software we're trying to avoid getting.
We don't have a budget for ransom, so.
No, we don't. Server upgrade on Thursday afternoon, Gary from Northeast IT came in. We started backup of everything on the server downstairs. We previously had 2 drives. We increased it by 5, so we have 7 now. We should be good for a few years. We backed up everything and then relaunched it on Friday. It took the entire day on Friday and a little bit into Saturday. Slight panic attacks when we lost power for fear of having to start all over again, but luckily we got through it. And at this point, we have everything backed up. Everything is running smoothly. We're going to have to do one more step just to push everything out to all the drives effectively. It didn't do what it was supposed to do, so we need to take one more step, I guess, to do so. We're also looking at Gary's recommendation to protect us further from virus issues and the ransomware and so forth. We are looking at getting additional external backup drives for downstairs for the server. So there are a couple, I think they're about $100 each. And what we'll do is every day we simply rotate the external drive, and that apparently is supposed to help protect us so that at the most we'd only lose a week's worth of data. Assuming, you know, that's before you go to Carbonite to ask them to send you the information and so forth. IT's ticket system, another request of the audit, has been implemented at this point. We're very excited. So we actually get alerts on the phone or on the email whenever someone has an issue. We can track everything. We can track how long it takes to resolve it. We can say who resolved it, commentary, and we can keep track of what's happening on regular occurrences and so forth. Okay, ongoing projects. The collective bargaining agreement for the police is still outstanding. Haven't heard back on where they stand from the last time the select board had communication with them, so we're still waiting on that piece. One thing that did come up is that in the event that that document does get signed, some point the town will need to go back to town meeting and reappropriate the retroactive pay for FY16, because we could not carry it over since we did not have a signed contract with them. Everyone else is good to roll and has been rolling, but that one group has not signed yet, and therefore we can't just roll it over. We will have to go back for that piece. Good news is, being that the fiscal year is complete, we will be able to calculate down to the penny of what we need for retro. So we will hopefully, Donna will be working on that next couple of weeks, so we should have the number in the event that the contract's signed for October special town meeting, and if not, it will be available for January special town meeting. Greenway, we're still working on that, and working on arranging meetings with some of our legislative members. Green communities. I got an email from the town clerk today. The bylaw for the stretch code has been approved by the AG's office. We just need to wait to hear back from them, official documentation. We are currently working on the 20% reduction plan. We're waiting on the gentleman who is working from a consultant that works with Eversource to complete doing the school. It was a little hold up because there were vacations and no one was present, so we're hoping to get that done relatively quickly. Once we have that information, we will transmit it over to UMass Extension, the energy extension program that has been working on entering all of our information into the MEI database. And at that point, we will sit down with them and come up with a 20% reduction plan for our energy savings over the next 5 years. We don't think we're going to have too much trouble with that reduction, but we'll see. We have a letter from town council saying that there's nothing that should prohibit someone from being able to seek a permit and complete the whole application process within a year's time frame. So we're good with that piece. And the last one was the fuel efficiency policy, which is in the packet, which we'll get to in a little bit. But that piece is there as well. Code Red, I still need to work with the dispatchers to get them all up to speed and trained so they can enter Code Red alerts. For anyone who had the alert earlier, I apologize. We had to send it out twice because I got all excited on the first round and made people assume that there was going to be some gentleman visiting every house, and apparently it was just the building permits that were
Looking
full.
for asbestos.
Oh, you're not funny. I did not write that, by the way. He's just being fresh.
Ad-libbing, huh?
Oh, yes, yes.
No, they were calling here wanting to know why they're looking for asbestos. Because the annunciation on the phone.
No, that was a person, in person, human. Anyway, Cook County Road, just an update on that because I know we had questions on in the past. Land grant was sent in July 11th. The water grant is due, guessing at the end of September. It hasn't been released yet, but they're looking to BayPAC for support. And CPA in Easthampton, applications are due September 2nd. Meeting is in the fall, and then it has to go to City Council. That's all I have for that piece. Okay, so, and public records law will be changing effective January 1st, 2017. I won't bore you with the details, but I sent you all an email earlier today on it. It's a double-sided single sheet of paper, but it's good to review because there are going to be things the board's going to be responsible to figure out as we move closer to January.
My sense is we're going to get a lot more requests with that new law in the books.
Can I move on to the first policy, Charlie?
Yes.
Okay. So the first policy before the board tonight, and hopefully what I'm hoping might be the only one that's looked at, is proposed procedures and policies and regulations for the select board. The idea of this piece is to really take into a lot of consideration of what has been said in the past couple of weeks, which is, allowing the public to digest things, also allowing department heads to digest things and be able to form any comments, concerns, or whatever before something goes into effect. This policy statement, there's 5 sections. The first one is review period, essentially saying that any policies and procedures that come before the select board will be placed on file and not acted on until 10 days have passed, and that's just 10 calendar days. I've seen this work in other communities where essentially it's put on file. In this case, we also state that it would go on the website and be available in the town clerk's office. So if any resident, if it's a policy that might affect them, or if it's a policy that might affect department heads, boards, etc., they have the opportunity to review it, hash out any comments, concerns they have, and to get feedback back to the select board before it's approved. The second section is the access to policies and regulations, which is what I just said, which is putting them available on the town clerk's office, at the town clerk's office rather, and on the town's website. The third piece on here is the official acceptance of policy and regulations. And I have here, once the review period, which was 10 days, has ended, the select board may vote to amend the proposed policy or regulation or approve it as written. So it still gives you the opportunity after the 10 days have passed to make any changes you need to or take into consideration any feedback that was provided. The next one I think is very important. It's annual ratification. So one of the issues we've been running into more and more, and had a lot of department heads that will randomly show up and be like, hey, look at a policy from 1982 that I found. So this is slightly concerning because you can't hold someone to an expectation that they don't know about. Now, to a certain extent, there's the idea that, ignorance is no defense of the law, and that's understandable. But in this case, if no one knew about it, including the enforcer of the regulations, not exactly the same. The other problem we run into is the select board turns over a period of time. And there's been a lot of policies that are out there that came well before this select board was here, and most, when asked, had no idea certain policies existed or that we had one. So one of the benefits of this piece of annual ratification is saying that, you will take this very seriously, and that once a calendar year, once a fiscal year, once there's been a turnover of the board and you get into July, August, and September, you'll actually sit down and review all of your policies and say, yes, we want to keep these. No, this one's changed. We want to amend this, what have you. But at least you'll review them so you know what policies are on file and which policies exist each year. And the last piece is simply the entirety, saying that any policy or regulation that does not go into the set of documents, whether it's throughout the year or on the annual piece, it doesn't exist. So if someone finds something in the drawer and they think it's important, they should bring it to the select board to see if they wish to adopt it, or adopt it again, whatever it may be, so that it becomes part of the docket in the history.
So the question is, we have policies out there presently. If we adopt this, which I'm in favor of, but we adopt this, does that mean that all the policies that we have sitting out there have to be ratified?
I would say yes.
Year? So that means that this list of policies being proposed, like driveway regulations and all the rest of that, has to be added to the master packet. So that master packet would be in front of this board, we'll say in 2 weeks?
Yes. And all of those pieces that the board would consider to add to the master packet that are either currently on the files already that we know of, or that are new proposals like the fuel efficiency policy or the driveway regulation are on the agenda tonight to hopefully encourage the board to say, let's place these all on file for 10 days. We'll make them available on the website, make them available on town clerk's page, And in 10 days, you come back and you review them, and then you say, okay, this is now in effect.
And they will be put in a format that it's obvious if something is missing. In other words, they're enumerated.
We can do it however the board wishes to do it.
Thoughts? I hate to turn my back to you. I feel rude when I do it that way. Just smack me.
I don't have an issue with them. I reviewed them before, so they look good, and putting them into the public for 10 days makes a lot of sense.
Is 10 days long enough?
Well, it's gonna really be 14, because their meetings are twice.
But it's a minimum of 10 days, right?
I'd just like to have more time.
How much time?
How about 20 days? Double it. Right? I mean, let's give it more time, because we're going to get people to know. You know, I mean, I just think, give it more time.
If it goes to 30, you're gonna lose track of it. I can see
30 is
that.
probably too long, but maybe, you know.
I mean, 10 days gives us 2 meetings,
Yeah. Well,
or gives us a meeting.
gives us a meeting.
2 weeks, a meeting in between.
But it's gonna be longer than that, because 20 days is almost 3 weeks, so you're not gonna be approving it till at least 30.
I was talking to 10 days, back to 10 days.
Oh, 10 days. Well, 10 days is 2 weeks, and I mean, I took it from the city, and the city did 10 days, and it's much larger.
Everyone I've dealt with has always done 10 days.
Let me ask you a question. If we have some controversial ones in the future, we can extend that time period, right?
Why not?
We set the
So-
policy.
Yeah, so I mean, these,
It just comes back before you in 10 days. I mean, there's no limitation of how many times you can place the thing on file.
yeah,
It doesn't even mean we approve it.
Right.
so I'm okay with the 10 days.
I hear a motion.
You hear a motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Yeah, I think 10 days is adequate, and if the board feels we need more time, take more time.
Maybe this will help. Okay, call a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
Second. So the next section should be all those policies, if the board would like to look at them, read them out loud, the names of them, and then maybe place them on file for
Just
10 days.
close the page. You want to read them for
Well, that way Randall can go home.
Other question? It's nothing to do with this, but we're talking about the calls we're getting sent out. Now, a call just went out from the Board of Assessors. They're going out there doing a 3-year revaluation and all that. So that group of call numbers, how many people are on that versus how many residents in town? Do you know? What list
I'd
they
have
use?
to look it up, John.
Yeah. So
I don't have it off the top of my head. Once it starts going to the data and statistic piece, I know I've sent it effectively, and unless I have nothing else to do,
Okay. So-
I move on.
I guess for the people at home, Board of Assessors sending people out to do the 3-year
Well, it's
reevaluation?
not, that's why it was a correction. They're doing the 3-year reeval, but this actually has nothing to do with it at the moment. What's
Right.
happening is they're working with the company Bishops and Associates
Right.
to go out to people's homes if they pulled a building permit in the last 6 months. So if you haven't pulled a building permit, you shouldn't have people randomly showing up at your house saying that they're representing the town.
So when
If they
is-
are showing up at your house, the gentleman who's going out, they have shirts that say Bishop and Associates on them. They have Mike, the town assessor's cards on him. The reason this all came up is there was a concern that there was someone visiting people's houses working with asbestos. See the confusion?
Yep.
That's how this whole piece came up.
Okay.
So when we got that information, we thought it would probably be a great idea to send people just information so they knew. The reason that the message was confused, because I wrote it after talking to Mike, but I didn't connect all the dots until the second version, so.
John, that's not unusual. A lot of the big cities actually send a letter to all the residents.
No, I think it's a great idea. I was just wondering what part of the population reaches with that phone tree, that's all.
Then I don't know. All right, we have proposals for policy. I'm just going to read the titles. Driveway regulations. Randall, is there anything you want to say to this?
If you read the purpose, it's pretty self-explanatory. I was unable to find any regulation, and it's something that needs to be addressed for public safety. Whenever you have a driveway entering a public way, there's potential for accidents or sliding into the road. So I took existing regulation we have in Southampton for common driveways and subdivision regs, looked at other towns and created something that I thought looked good. I got input from police, fire, and other town officials, and that's what we came up with, group effort.
And the whole reason of holding it out for 10 days is so people can review it. And just so you know, we actually have a town bylaw that instructs the Board of Selectmen to adopt policy on driveways.
On curb cuts, correct.
Or curb cuts. Okay, the next one is fuel efficiency vehicles. The one after that is special municipal employees designations. Another one is alcohol hours. Then it goes into emergency weather. Hi, everybody. Must have been something I said. Free cash. Hearing before the select board. Meal reimbursement policy, procedure for dog hearings, proposed procedures and policies and regulations for select board, and purchase orders. So there's quite a bit of stuff if people want to review it. Next thing is I'm going to jump back. Any reports from departments, boards, or committees? Hearing none. Liaisons?
I was gonna do the planning board.
Well, you didn't, go ahead, do the planning board.
Didn't give him a chance, but, sorry. All right, Paul sent me an email, he couldn't make it, in the planning board. Basically, got a lot going on. They're in, I guess we have the one subdivision ongoing, which is the Pellegrini off of Crooked Ledge. We're continuing to process solar apps, and the zoning bylaw revisions is progressing and will be public hearings this fall. And I'll be ready possibly for the January 17th town meeting. And he has a comment on here that subdivisions on roads like Crooked Ledge and others will continue to plague us due to the condition of some of the roads that subdivisions are going off of that aren't really that great. And that was all he had to say.
He says town meeting's the 17th?
He said in 2017.
Oh,
He said
okay.
ready for January 2017 town meeting, so I'm not sure
All right.
if we're having one then or not.
I
If
didn't
you know
know.
something I don't know.
Okay.
So I have one.
Yes.
Hi. How are you?
Good.
Came by tonight, you know,
Yeah.
just to see what he's doing.
See how the world is.
Yeah. Anyway, so the zoning board, Nilda said they have a meeting in September, and the community preservation committee, Virginia Ahart is here if she wants to say anything about what's going on. And
Well, we're planning for our, and I've forgotten the date, the October report to the town and project selection. And as I said before, we're really looking for projects in the broad spectrum of the town. So we're hoping people, and we've got a few things that we want to do to kind of maybe make people more interested in turning in projects, which you'll be hearing more about those later.
thank you.
Please.
Okay, forgetting me. Finance Committee, Heather already went over the library and the policies that they're going over. Had a meeting last night on that. Heather went over the Greenway Negotiating Committee update, so I won't go over that. And tomorrow, we're having a public safety complex meeting tomorrow.
Yes, we are.
And I think one of the keys is we're still looking for community members that have an interest and some talent on that, because we don't have any takers so far. So if Anybody out there is interested on the Public Safety Committee, get a hold of Charlie. He's the chair, or myself, I'm the vice chair. And the meeting is tomorrow night, 5:30 here.
Yes. Okay. I have no updates on the material I'm working, or departments I'm working with, but I would like to drift right into the school committee. One, we've lost a member of the school committee, which means we're seeking someone to be there. Two, it appears we should have a liaison to the school committee. One of the select board members should do that. I'm not going to ask for a volunteer tonight, but I'd like everybody to think about this. I know time is commitment and so on and so forth, but given the amount of funding we give to our schools, they need to hear our voice here concerning our budgets concerns and that as well. So please take that into consideration.
Just so people know what frequency and what days do they meet, do you know?
I honestly do not know.
Virginia?
It's, I think the fourth Wednesday.
Fourth Wednesday of each month?
Yeah,
So one time a month,
yeah, it's normally one time a month.
okay?
Even a little more maybe as we get the budgeting time.
Yeah, budgeting time would always increase that.
And the meetings are at 6, and I've only been to one that ran beyond 8.
So 6 to 8 o'clock, typically they're done by 8. I'm repeating you because they can't hear you at home.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, with that, let's move into, well, we picked town meeting date already. Okay, I guess we're going into appointments. Anyone have that paperwork?
I'm sorry, what are we working on?
Signatures, appointments, Council on Aging.
So the signatures piece you have just listed out in front of you in your packets. You had the information for Council on Aging was the first one. There were a few people who resigned recently. And on your agenda, you have one mistype, and that was, I got confused. So there's Patrice Mackey, and then the second person, I had wrote Arlene Sealy. She's actually one who resigned, but you can see my confusion since the replacement was Darlene. So Darlene kind of confused me there, but it should say that Darlene Madioka. I don't know if that Y is silent or not, but I'm not the best person on pronunciation, is one of the people to be the replacement. So Patrice Mackey and Arlene Sealy. Patrice would have an expiration, this is an appointed position, of June 30th, 2018, and Darlene would be there June 30th, 2019 would be her expiration.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
There's no opposition, I'm in favor too.
The second appointment position here is for the Bylaw Advisory Committee, and that's for Velva Goldberg. She's my assistant. We have a Bylaw Advisory Committee that the Select Board established last year. It had 5 seats on it. One person has stepped down. One continued to be vacant. So having Velva step on it would be 4 out of 5 seats. She's very interested, excited, and I think she'd love to work with Virginia, really, is what it comes down to.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Personnel change forms. First one is Mike Goyette. If you remember, we have signed contracts with Mr. Goyette as chief, and he is looking now for his pay increase. If you remember the contract specifically states upon town appropriation. The town has not appropriated the money for that new salary range. I personally don't think we should be moving forward with that form, given the fact that finance is gonna look at it and say there's no funding there anyways. I think we should just put that on, tabling it until we get to pass the town meeting.
And it was clear in the negotiation process, that's when it was gonna be.
It's in the contract.
Yep.
You know, contract specifically says on appropriation. So do I hear a motion?
What's the motion?
To table this, Mr. Goyette.
And to put funding on town meeting?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we table it and put it on the town meeting, and if it passes, we'll revisit it again.
Yeah. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This board's getting smaller by the minute. All right. Now we have a number of firemen. Timothy Rowan, probation firefighter, new hire.
Are we gonna do one at a time, or are we gonna?
It's up to you guys. You want to do them all?
So all these have been approved, all these have been,
Charlie has the forms in front of him. He'd have to look on the backs.
Yeah, at the finance committee last night, they approved them all, they
Okay.
reviewed them and approved them all.
All right. Well, if they're all approved, then Jordan Duchette. Boy, I'm terrible when it comes to names. Cassandra Liptrill, Jean Risk, Florence Collins twice. One's increase in hourly rate, the other one's temporary increase in hours. And Nancy Okolowitz, assistant temp increase in hours. Motion to approve?
I'll make the motion we approve based on what's written on the form and not your pronunciation.
Oh, don't go with my pronunciation.
and I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those are moved. Not sure what this means, Heather. Info through PPB board awaiting FinCom approval tonight. Mike
Oh, they've
Goyette.
all been, I was just saying, they all had been approved by the personnel policy, and John stated the FinCom approved all of them.
All right.
The next statement's not relevant.
All right. Licensing and permits, application by Chuck Ethier for a one-day all alcohol license for Kona Park Pavilion on Sunday, September 25th, from 12 noon to 7 p.m. for a picnic. It appears all paperwork and fees are in order. Motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. FY 2017 formula grant application for Council on Aging, statement of authorization. Annual entitlement grant from the state. We need to basically sign the authorization form that we're applying for the grant. Motion?
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Community Assistance Program, 46 New State Road, discharge of lien. Where's New State Road?
We don't
Well,
have
that was my question after I put it on the agenda last minute. It was a letter we received from PVPC. We did one of these previously in January, where someone who was part of the program from FY 2010 Community Assistance Program needed some modifications to their documents, so we had provided them. We received the letter from PVPC. I put it on. Then I took another look at it to understand where it was and to go find more information. And after I put it on, I realized that it said the zip code, and according to the Google Maps, it appears it might be in like Montague. So I have a call out to the woman at PVPC who handles this. She's on vacation, so I left her a voicemail. So when she gets back, we'll clarify. But there's confusion as to whether it was actually Southampton or not Southampton. So
There is no state road, so.
I didn't think so, but someone
to
suggested it
pass
could be the
over?
wrong address.
I'll make the motion we pass over.
Second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we passed over that. So Jackie's now chair?
What? I'm going to leave again.
All right, payroll. Here, John, why don't you do that? for me?
Payroll was last week, but that's the bill warrants. I do not have numbers for payroll, so I'll have to get them for you next time.
All right,
But they were signed. The bill warrants, you'll note that Joyce left us a note. There is nothing that needs to be pulled out specifically for anyone to sign separate. No conflicts in this bill warrant cycle.
Very good.
So is there a listing of these, or you want me to?
I think there's only one, John.
Just this top one here?
Yep.
Okay, so this is bill warrant W17-7 for $260,989.19. Make a motion, we accept.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion
We have a
carries.
second on that one, but there wasn't a second on that one.
That was you.
I'll second.
Did you second that?
No, I did.
I made the motion.
I thought I made the motion, okay. Is that right?
Who made the motion?
I made a motion when I read it,
Right,
yeah,
he seconded it.
yeah.
That's what I heard.
It's a double second.
Man, those two shouldn't sit together.
Just trying to make sure that.
They're very thorough.
I can see that. Okay, oh, I love this part. Open time for the public. Hearing none, I'm closing that. Approval of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the June 21st, 2016 minutes?
Yes.
I have looked at all the minutes. I have, you gonna go one at a time, or you want, I only have 2 questions on all the minutes. How do you wanna handle that?
All right, then let's do it this way. I'm going to take out the executive session minutes. We'll take and do June 21st, July 18th, July 26th, August 2nd, August 16th. Do I hear a motion to approve them?
Well, we just gotta make one change here.
Well, that'll be in discussion.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion, we approve.
Second,
Discussion?
on July 18th,
Mm-hmm.
first page, I'll just make sure I know this is everything. This motion, it only has a second, doesn't have to make the motion.
Okay, right.
So, I'm going to pass it down, right?
But, yeah,
What is it?
doesn't say who made that motion, the bottom.
Oh, just missing a little bit.
Okay, it's missing a motion on there.
I think you made the motion, Charlie, but I'm not 100% positive on that.
Yeah, it says motion made, but it doesn't say who the motion was made by, but it has who seconded it.
I suspect it must have been my motion. So, the minutes are accepted as written, except with the minor modification of a name for the motion on that one document. It's just a typo.
Yeah, I think it just omitted, that's all by accident.
Vote, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
If I can just go back, so the one you guys skipped over, I don't think that's what you think it is. So if there's a time to approve executive session minutes in open time, when I say executive session minutes, I literally mean that what they say is approve the minutes of the minutes. So like, all you're approving is a list, it's crazy, I know. But here's the kicker, so you can't approve executive session minutes in open time unless you are releasing those. Once you approve those minutes become open.
Right.
So what you have to do is you have to approve, like tonight, there's a list of all these crazy executive sessions, right? So in executive session, the board will approve the executive sessions, and then for the following meeting, there'll be an item that says today's date, executive session minutes, meaning you're approving a list of these minutes. Like, there's no details, it just says.
Well, that's why I cut it out of there, because it looked like we were gonna open up the executive session.
This is the second
can't.
approval.
This is just, yeah, you're just approving a list of dates,
Correct.
essentially, dates and numbers.
All right.
Executive session.
Very exciting.
So, do I hear a motion to approve the executive session list of July 18th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, move past. We just approved the list of the list.
Okay.
Any calendar announcements?
So next meeting, I think you guys voted on being, first, I think is it the 25th for the PPB?
Yeah. It's
At 6 PM or 23rd?
hang on, I'm looking. It's the 25th
Okay.
at 6 PM,
Oh, my phone went dead.
just for Personnel Board.
Okay, and then the 30th for a regular meeting, and then you resume bi-weekly schedule on the 6th of September.
Right, and if we see that there isn't a lot for the 30th, we'll just push it into the 6th,
Gotcha.
okay?
Can I mention something that's coming in September?
Yes.
Okay, so on September 24th at 7 PM, we're having an Angel Heart Vigil at the Monument at Crossword Park. Our second one.
Any other announcements? Then I will take and bring us under Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Item 2, 4, 1, 3, to go into executive session by roll call vote.
Will we be coming out? Yeah, say that.
We will not be coming out in open session.
Labrie, aye?
Martin, aye?
Kaneki, aye?
Sears, aye.
Okay, we're going into executive session. Thank you, everyone. And now I am going to do what you two did.